Hi guys, my name is Jeno and I'll be talking about the effects of petroleum and plastics on human health. Before I start this video off, I'd like to apologize for my voice and if I cough at any time. I'm really sick right now and I'm really fortunate that this is an online class. So some background info on plastics, which I'll be starting off with, are that 300 million metric tons of plastics are produced each year. And over the last 10 years, we've produced more plastics than the entire last century. And this just goes to show our increasing demand and need for plastics. Um, and that 93% of Americans tested positive for the chemical BPA, which I'm sure most of you already know about, but I'll be explaining it in the next slides. So bisphenol A, also known as BPA, is an industrial chemical that is used in the making of the majority of all our plastics. So basically what it is it's a chemical that's used to harden the plastics and it's apparently very crucial to the making of plastics because it's in all, or like I would say like 90% of plastic products. And it's gained recent notoriety due to the recent medical discoveries. And by recent, I mean in the last 10 to 20 years. So for any of you people taking OChem or science fans like me, this is the chemical structure for BPA. So some basic facts about BPA is that it's a chemical agent and it's used to, like I said, harden most plastics. And it's on almost everything that we use. So some examples of really common items that we use that BPA is in are plastic water bottles, which I'm sure most of us have drunk out of at least once, cans, medical devices, and dental sealants, which are the worst from what I've read on PubMed. Dental sealants have the highest trace amounts of BPA released from them. And another interesting fact was that the FDA reversed its stance on BPA in 2010. So prior to 2010, the FDA's stance on BPA was that it was safe to produce and safe to consume for humans, consume trace amounts for humans. But in 2010, due to the overwhelming amount of articles going out against BPA, articles saying that it causes weight gain, fertility problems, um, incorrect fetus development, and even some articles saying that it causes cancer, they reversed their stance. And another cool fact is that every year more research comes out against BPA, which makes my job much easier to explain this because if you go on PubMed, you can see like every year they're just cranking out new articles saying that BPA is terrible for your health. And coincidentally, the next article was a BPA study on obesity. This was the one I used for my midterm paper. It's a study that was done over 4.5 months, and it was done in 2015. So basically, what they did was they they divided up groups of mice into a control group and a test and a group being tested with BPA. So the control group was fed sugar water, and the group testing with BPA was fed sugar water as well as injected with trace amounts of BPA. And over 4.5 months, they measured their weights every other week. And what they found at the end of the study was that the mice treated with BPA had not only higher weight on average than the mice who were just fed sugar water, but they also had higher levels of adipose fat, which is the white fat. And they also had other problems um, such as erectile dysfunction and lower sperm counts. So moving on to petroleum. So the recent discovery of petroleum in the late 1800s has led to the world's economic boom, but only recently have we been beginning to see the potential negative effects of its exposure on human health. So petroleum comes from the Latin word petra, meaning rock, and oleum, meaning oil. And it's a thick, flammable yellow to black mixture of gaseous, liquid, solid hydrocarbons. And then you can see here that it contains what's important about it is that it contains many of the things that we use today, like inside the oil. There's gas, gasoline, kerosene, fuel, lubricant, oils, paraffin wax, and asphalt. So the next slide, yeah, you can see right here, this like blackish liquid is what it looks like. So petrol and health problems. So petroleum has many dangerous compounds in it, such as benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene. These four dangerous compounds are abbreviated BTEX. And what's dangerous about these compounds is that they're known cancer-causing agents, especially benzene. Many of you guys have probably heard about benzene and its cancer-causing properties. So, fortunately for most of us, we're not really exposed to petroleum a lot unless you work directly with petroleum. So the only people who have to watch out for it are petroleum workers. So they have to watch out for their TPH, which stands for total petrol hydrocarbons. So as you can see here, I use this in my midterm as well. This shows the effects uh, that that can happen on your body when your TPH count is way too high. It can lead to lung cancer, blood disease, and it affects your liver, spleen, kidneys, and too much exposure could lead to all of these bad things and even death. So other petroleum problems. So although petroleum, like I said, doesn't affect us directly, unless you're a petrol worker, uh, it affects us indirectly with our human-caused errors. So many of you guys know about the BP oil spill that happened, which led to mass wildlife death and indirectly affects us because it kills the fish and our wildlife. And of course, the Keystone Pipeline, which is very controversial right now. And then the biggest one, which is its own entire subject, but I'll go into it a little, is fracking, which has led to many different problems that have yet to be researched. I actually did a research on it in my Comp 20 class last year, so I'll explain it a little bit in the next slide. So basically, what fracking is it's a giant like drill that it drills down into the Earth's core, and then it goes down into the past the water table, and then it goes into uh, the crust area past the water table, and then it drills sideways, and then it pumps in pressurized water, and then that pressurized water causes the earth to crack. And then when the earth cracks, they the the shale formation, chemicals and rocks, gases are released back up through pressure, and they collect all the gases in a giant tank. But to do this, they use these fracking chemicals, which are terrible for the environment and terrible for um, just humans in general. And what happens with these fracking chemicals is that as you can see here, it drills through the water table, and these fracking chemicals leak into the groundwater. So what some people are seeing around the middle of the U.S. is that their wells water is tasting a little bit funny, and that um, uh, nearby rivers or lakes are turning in weird colors. And some other effects that haven't been researched fully are earthquakes and small tremors that have been caused by drilling sites of fracking. So to finish this off, petroleum and plastics have been a necessary evil for the world we live in, but it doesn't mean we should just like accept it and keep using them. There's other alternatives. We don't have to use plastic water bottles. We can use uh, our own water bottles, such as like a hydro flask. You don't have to use plastic bags. That's something that's been a recent trend. And many countries such as France have just outright banned the use of BPA's in their food and use BPA-free eating utensils. And on the note for petroleum, uh, of course, electric cars are moving into the market with Tesla and everything, as well as the stop on fracking. There have been more protesting against it, and yeah. And when I chose this topic, I picked it because it was the only one I had no prior knowledge of, and I thought it would be a challenge for me, and it was very interesting, and I hope you enjoyed learning about it.